Hi, welcome to Ketobiography. I'm your host, Robin Dobbins. At her highest weight of 574 pounds, she was living in a body that made every step feel impossible and was told her mind might be just as broken as her metabolism. After shifting from a very low carb diet to a therapeutic ketogenic way of eating, her blood pressure and chronic pain improved, and the psychiatric labels that once defined her no longer fit the life she's living now. Today, she feels better than she has in over 20 years and is just getting started. Please welcome Lisa Blackstone to Keto Biography. Hello, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me on Keto Biography.
Of course, I'm so glad. So, for everyone to know, this is Lisa's first podcast, and these first times just excite me so much. I love having this opportunity to get the story out there. As we talked about before we kind of went live, is I really believe that each story touches at least one person, and that one person then touches the next, and it just kind of ripples out from there. And I love that you're willing to share what you're doing and how you're doing it and everything in between. So, with that, as I also mentioned, I like to just turn it over. So, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell your story in your way. I'm going to go go grab a cup of coffee and just keep talking. Don't worry about it. Just keep talking. No, I'll be right here listening, and just I can't wait to hear everything you have to share with us. So, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I'm excited to share my journey. I started to mainly lose weight and regain mobility, but it transformed my life physically, mentally, and emotionally. So in 2024, I was, like you said, at my highest weight of 574 pounds. And my mobility was very limited. I think I know my first picture of before the transformation journey was of me sitting in my recliner because I really couldn't stand very long and I couldn't go out and outside and get a picture taken anywhere, like on my porch or in my yard. I just didn't have the mobility to be able to do that. And it was so limited. I couldn't drive. I really didn't go anywhere. And I needed help with many basic daily tasks. So my initial goal was simply lose weight and regain independence. So about 18 months ago, I started a low carb diet, a very low carb diet. And around the same time, or a little bit before that, I was also involved with Children's Mental Health Resource Center. And in October of 2024, just a few months after I started a very low carb diet, they began a pilot study on ketogenic therapy for children with bipolar and adolescents. And that was my first clinical exposure to keto. So I wasn't involved in the study. I just got handed you should go, you're doing low carb, you should go listen to Metabolic Mind. And it took me a while, but I started listening to them and it was fascinating. And then I started from just a low carb diet, a very low carb diet, started reaping the benefits of not just losing weight, but my psychiatrist had to start rapidly tapering my meds out of necessity because I started improving psychiatrically, basically. So during that time, I was listening to Metabolic Mind and doing my very low carb diet. I happened to read the book by Dr. Georgia Ede called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. And it made so much sense. She's very practical. And it made a lot of sense to me what she was saying because I was already seeing the effects in my life from just simply reducing carbs significantly. And I kept my protein where it should be, but I didn't really have the fat component added in to that. So after that, I transitioned to therapeutic ketogenic therapy. And I've lost 220 pounds in almost 18 months. I can now walk comfortably. I can drive again. I can manage my household. I get up and I do chores, which I haven't done in years. Um, I do weight training and resistance training at the gym. My blood pressure, I had to go off my blood pressure medicine because I was actually becoming hypomanic, or not hypomanic, whatever it's called, I forget the word because I'm in perimenopause, but I
Okay,
was
I'm
having
trying
high
to do
blood
the same thing,
pressure.
and I'm in the same place.
I had extremely low blood pressure, so my doctors had to take me off that. And since then, my blood pressure normally is in the 123 over 70 range. So I feel pretty happy about that. And I'm off of all of my antidepressant, antipsychotic, sleep meds, pain meds, and a benzodiazepine that I had been on for 20 years. Now, this didn't all happen at once. My doctor had to taper me as best he could, and it wasn't perfect. I still experienced withdrawals because doctors don't really understand how to go down to the lowest dose. They, cut a dose in half, then they cut it into half again, and they keep cutting it until it doesn't go any further according to the lowest dose. But even that lowest dose would have been helpful to go further down on it, either compound it or something. But he didn't understand how to do that. So sometimes I just had to drop off of these medications. And so my antidepressant was the hardest to come off, and my benzodiazepine was the most difficult one to come off. So mentally and emotionally, I've had relief from PTSD, anxiety. I'm an introvert, but I also have a lot of anxiety of just stepping outside my house, going to the store, going anywhere. And now I go to several book clubs in my community. I go meet friends at a coffee shop. Sometimes I go there by myself and I just read. And I never would have done any of that before. Not only are my blood pressures normalized, my heart rate is much lower than it used to be, my resting heart rate, and my fasting glucose is lower. They're all stable, which is just amazing. So I've gained clarity and focus, and also creativity back. I read 120 books last year. I love reading. I've always loved reading, but over the years, it got to where I couldn't concentrate long enough to get through one book, much less 120. And then I started writing again because I've always loved journaling. I've always loved writing, and I just love to do it, love to do my own little thing. I have my own private poetry and notes and stuff like that. And I'm able to do that again, because before I just felt like so foggy. I couldn't even put words down on paper. It was just agonizing. Well, like I said, over the years, over that time, out of necessity, my psychiatrist had to taper me down and then eventually off all my medications. And I finally, through, I think, Metabolic Mind and another podcast, I learned about akathisia. I had never heard of akathisia before. And from the very beginning of 20 years ago, having a mental health crisis, and I went to my family doctor, and I think I failed all the screenings. He called in a counselor. She talked to me, and then I ended up involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility. That was 20 years ago. That was my first start into psychiatry and psychiatric meds. And the very first medication I was given, I was like, I asked the psychiatrist, why am I rocking? Why am I want to move so much? What's going on? And they labeled it as trauma, and I did have trauma in my childhood, but I didn't even think twice about it. And then later on, that was my very first medication. And then later on, other medications they tried, some of them had horrible side effects of just restlessness, disassociation, um, just feeling lost within myself and just writhing around in bed. I've had psychiatric nurses tell me I'm faking it. I've had doctors diagnose me with other psychiatric conditions, such as borderline personality disorder, which even my therapists were like, I don't think you have this. But I think it was all a result of akathisia. And so just hearing another person's experience and naming it as akathisia, I went to the Akathisia Alliance page on their page online, and it was just a relief. And I went through all of the hundreds of medications they have listed there. It isn't just psychiatric medications. There's antibiotics on there. There is anti-nausea meds on there. So I have to carry that around with me because akathisia is a very little known neurological emergency, and they don't treat it as that. So just having a name for it was so helpful, and then being able to have the calm of getting away from those meds that were causing it, and to just not have to be constantly needing to just move and rock and feel disassociated all the time. It was amazing. I feel like myself. So, and I have a very short story because I'm still in the midst of it, because I have about a little over 200 pounds more to lose, I believe, or no, 100 and something. I tried to figure out this morning. What do you think? You maybe about 108 pounds to lose. So I don't know if I'll get to my goal weight. I'm going to go as far as I can feel for myself, still healthy, still clear, still mentally able to do things. And as long as that works, I'll do what I can. But that's pretty much my journey so far.
I don't think you have a short story. I just think there's more to unpack in there.
Okay.
But yes, you're a work in progress, as are all of us, and it's kind of cool to speak to you here 18 months into your journey, because now I already know that I get to talk to you again perhaps 18 months from now and get an update. So we'll just work on that in the future. So you can just make a goal for yourself that even if it's not a weight loss goal, and in fact, I prefer not to see weight loss goals. I think we get bogged down in the numbers. I think it's just keep on keeping on and see what happens down the line. But one of those things will be an update here on Ketobiography, so we can just go ahead and plan that. Just write it in. So I'm going to go back a little bit. I do want to speak more about a couple of things. So I'm going to go back first with I guess the different diagnoses that you had been given throughout your life. And you can go into as much detail as you feel comfortable sharing. But I know it's not just psychiatric and neurological, that you've had some other things as well. So kind of run us down a little bit more specifically the diagnoses that you've had, and then how this 18 months has changed that, because you brushed over it real fast. So I think there's more there.
Well, let me think. Each diagnosis that I have, major depressive disorder, borderline personality disorder, questionable, PTSD, probable, anxiety, probable, Trying to think. I think that's it, but I'm not. Insomnia, constant, like 20 years of insomnia, taking double dose of sleep medication. Yeah.
Wow, that's, I mean, and that's the thing. You get the diagnoses and then it comes with a drug. It doesn't come with any
It
other.
always does. Yeah. That's the only
And
way
that,
we know how to
uh,
treat it.
right, right. Is we know in the common space, I guess, is that you get the diagnosis, you get a pill, and that's going to fix it. Do you ever feel like you were fixed? Did you ever feel better?
No, no, because I thought this would be my life. And I was labeled treatment resistant, but, because I had tried probably 50 medications, medication trials that some of them worked. Others caused a lot of disruption to my life or a lot of symptoms I couldn't handle. So they had to be discontinued. I never felt like I was cured. And I thought this would be my life, like I said, that I would always be in and out of psychiatric facilities. I've probably been hospitalized about 8 times in those 20 years. And most of them were involuntary commitment. Um, Akathisia causes that internal panic. And many people in their life, because when you're in the moment of akathisia, the very worst part of it, it feels like I will do anything to end this, and you will. So that's why a lot of my a lot of my inpatient hospitalizations were involuntary.
So let's dig
um
into that more because
sure.
it's funny that you said you heard about it on a podcast and I'm
I did.
hearing about it through you. So now we get to talk about it a little bit more. So you said it's a neurological emergency and it's caused by medications. So it's like a,
I believe primarily dopamine antagonists.
okay.
I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so
Nor am I, so it's fine.
I'm just trying to get, all of my information about it. Doctors I've come across will say, "Oh yes, I've heard of akathisia. It's very uncomfortable." But then I've had them try to re-prescribe me a medication. If I take it with Benadryl, will that help soften the blow? And I'm like, no. First of all, I have a paradoxical reaction to Benadryl. It makes me quite excited and just I can't stop moving either. It doesn't cause akathisia, but it just makes you it doesn't calm me down. And it doesn't help the akathisia. So yeah, they'll say, yes, I know it's very uncomfortable, but and
So do they think it's an allergic reaction that you're
it's
having? Is that
not
why they go
really
with
an allergic reaction, but all of the medications that cause it, I end up having to put under allergies in my medical record just
yeah.
so that they just stop trying to prescribe it to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so can you just kind of describe like what would be considered an event it when that happens?
Well, for everybody, it is different. Like when I first started with a medication called Geodon 20 years ago, I started rocking a lot and constantly circling my feet. And that was labeled as a trauma response instead of saying, oh, this is akathisia. With trazodone, I cannot sleep, it's an antidepressant, but it's primarily given to sleep to help me sleep. And that was usually in the hospital. And I could not stop moving. But when you sit up, you can't stay sitting up there. You stand up, you can't stay standing up. You walk around, you pace. You feel like the world is about to end. And everybody's experience, from what I understand, on Akathisia Alliance is different. I experienced for the first time depersonalization and feeling like I was floating and not with my body and outside of my body, and disassociation. And then I think that's why they diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder. And then I was also self-harming at the time. So it's it's amazing. I know they know about it. I know psychiatrists know about it, but that they didn't recognize it. And I've been with the same psychiatrist for 18 years. Um, is just concerning. And every time I mention it, even to a neurologist, they're like, oh, okay. They just don't get that it is an emergency when it's happening. Most recently, I was in the hospital, not for a psychiatric admission. I had surgery to remove, for a paniculectomy. I had a 28-pound penis, and I found a surgeon that was willing to work with me and remove it. And then I also have basically an incisional underlying ventral hernia that's almost a foot from back. I think it started after I had an emergency C-section 19 years ago, and they never would fix it because of my weight. And I found out that I started having a lot of nausea back in October, the end of October after the surgery. And it was due to the hernia now competing for, I don't know, space or something in my intestines and my stomach. I don't know exactly everything. But due to that, I was trying to keep up with eating 80 grams of protein a day and drinking 80 ounces of water a day, eating the small amount of carbs I get from berries and vegetables that are keto compliant, and fats. And I stopped being able to force myself to eat those. So I kind of knew that I was in trouble, because once you stop eating, not able to get at least 80 grams of protein, you're unable to keep healing. And I still have a wound from my paniculectomy that needs to be healed. So I went to the ER, and I'd already talked to a doctor who said to go to the ER and explain to them. So I did that. So I'm experiencing this nausea, and I'm no longer able to keep down food and no longer to eat. And they give me a medication that is actually on the list of medications with the Akathisia Alliance that causes akathisia. And I was so ill. I kept asking them to repeat the name, and I didn't prepare ahead and bring the list with me. And I just didn't have enough thought to go online and look at it on my phone. I just was very ill. So I agreed to the medication. They gave it to me in IV to help stop the nausea. And within 20 minutes, I could not stop moving. I was writhing all over the gurney. And my husband was concerned, and he knew it was an akathisia emergency. And I pushed the button, and here they bring me a pill of Benadryl, which at the time I didn't know I had a paradoxical effect with Benadryl. I was just like, okay, this isn't going to work. A pill. They gave it via IV. Why can't you bring me put something quicker in my IV? But I didn't say anything. So they bring me a pill, and they say, wait 20 to 30 minutes and then tell us if it's working. And it didn't work. So here they come, after eventually coming back around to my room after 40 minutes with another pill of Benadryl. And I said, this is not going to work. They said, just try it. Okay. They said, wait 20 to 30 more minutes again. So I did that, and I'm trying to be so patient. And then they finally come in and they give me Valium, which they should have probably started with Valium. But my husband says it knocked me out, but that it did not stop me moving. Like, I was still very activated with it. And no nurse, no doctor stayed in my room long enough to watch anything happen. Like, they didn't know how this was happening. So that was my most recent incident with akathisia. And I'm still trying to figure out how, if anything ever happens again, how can I help them figure out how to treat it better. Um, I don't know. I'm still
Yeah.
working that out.
Yeah. That's a like a pre-surgical conversation if you're in there for a reason that you know why you're in there. But I guess if you are in an emergency situation, it's a lot harder to explain that. So it sounds like Benadryl is like the go-to answer, but what does the what did you call it, the Akathisia Alliance, what are their recommendations for how to treat
There
the
are
emergency?
several. One is a medication that has been known to cause akathisia as well, but
Fight
it's
fire with
also,
fire.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's also like a first line kind of thing. I believe the other one is like a is almost anesthesia. It's propofol or something like that, or propranolol. I am not sure. I just know it was the one I think that killed a famous singer. So, and I don't remember. I know it starts with a P, but I'm just not sure what it is. That's another treatment. And Valium probably should have been the first thing they tried if they wanted. They're very hesitant in the ER to try a lot of other things, but I'm surprised they even tried Valium,
Yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
interesting. I mean, I know you were still moving, but at least it wasn't like
I was
making you
asleep,
feel terrible, like you were asleep. So you didn't have the
right,
thoughts that went on with it, but your body was still moving. It's
right.
very interesting. Now I need to learn more. And
Oh,
I'm
I went home immediately and created uh, on the Akathisia Alliance. They have printouts that you can give to your clinicians, and it has a list of the medications that they know cause it. I've had other medications trigger it, not as badly, but if they're not even on the list. So I'm just really sensitive to medication, apparently. Um, and I think especially now that I'm off of all of my medications except for one for restless leg syndrome and a vitamin that my doctor insists I take. um, I just don't have a desire to be on any medications, to be honest. A lot of my doctors will say, "Oh, you have back pain. Here's a medication." I'm like, I don't want it, because I'm like, unless I have like level 10 back pain, um, I don't want it. I can deal. I can do physical therapy. I can work something out, but being off all these medications is so extremely freeing.
Yeah, I could
Um,
totally relate to could totally
okay.
relate to that. Um, and it makes you, well, at least question, well, why are we going to a medication first? Because now I know all of this other stuff, and is medication
Right.
going
And
to be the right
anytime
answer?
anytime a medication is suggested to me, I'm always like, what are the metabolic effects? And they're like, oh, well, it doesn't cause weight gain. I was like, that is not
That's not the
exactly
question I'm
all of what
asking.
I'm asking.
Yeah.
I am concerned about the weight gain because over the years, when I was trialing 50 medications, I was gaining a lot of weight. And when I would go to my doctors, they would say, eat less, move more. And I was like in karate and jujitsu, I was in kickboxing, I was running, at least trying to run 5Ks and training. I tried. I really tried, but nobody would sit me down and say, hey, it's carbs, it's sugar, you need to eat more protein. Over the years, I probably wasn't getting in each meal enough, in each day, enough protein to fuel myself properly or to heal. There's, there's no way. I was getting plenty carbs. I was getting more than enough carbs.
Yeah, you were
But
running solely on sugar.
right,
Mhm.
pretty much. And then the crashes with that, just horrible.
This is kind of a
Um,
combined question then. So,
sure.
um, how much do you think the different diagnoses were actually the akathisia? And then also, kind of similarly, how much do you think your weight gain over the years was caused by the different medication and not necessarily by your lifestyle?
I think I think the medications cause a significant amount of my weight gain, because they also brought in the feeling of helplessness. And then you just kind of give up. I didn't give up until after, I didn't really give up until about 2022, I think. And then I had an event with sepsis and was hospitalized and put in ICU. I was very sick with sepsis. And then suddenly I developed lymphedema. And I just laid in bed. I sat in my recliner. I did nothing else. I was so discouraged. And I just gave up, ate whatever I wanted, forget exercise. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped working out and trying to do martial arts. I just gave up. I I was tired of it. I was tired of everybody saying, you know, eat less, move more. I followed my plate. Before that, I followed the food pyramid. I followed everything I knew to follow. I tried gastric sleeve surgery, didn't work. It worked. I lost about 85 pounds on it. It took a year. But you compare that to how much I've lost in 18 months, 220 pounds. I can't compare it. I went through sleeve surgery. I've tried injections. I've tried different kinds of medications to help lose weight. I've tried many different programs that are out there. None of it worked because all of it was based off of trying to control, like trying to eat healthy and balanced. And I moved a lot. And so then after I ended up with sepsis, I was just like, none of this works. Who cares? I'm done.
It's just a sad state of affairs that you spent 20 years doing all of the things because you knew something wasn't right. So you were doing all the things that you were told to do to be well, be better, feel better, and yet still end up after 20 years wanting to give up completely. It's to
Right.
me very infuriating. I'm sure you feel similarly. It just boggles the mind that our first choice in the doctor in our current system is medication. If that one's not going to work, let's do this one. If that one's not going to work, let's do this one. And never really a conversation about why it's happening in the first place, which is
Right.
why I love to tell these stories because we can now have these conversations. So you changed your diet because you were obviously overweight and you changed to low carb and that was simply because you wanted to lose weight.
That was it.
Yeah, I understand that too. A lot of people, that's what happens. Then you start noticing a change and you hear the lovely Dr. Georgia Ede and read her book. That's how I found out about the connection also was through Dr. Ede. So she's quite amazing. What was the change that you made? Like, what did you consider low carb for weight loss, and how is that different from what you're now calling therapeutic ketogenic?
Well, I had the protein in place, but my carbs were still a little bit too high. Um, I get now about 30 grams of carbs a day. I aim for that a day through berries, and I think eggs have carbs. I know eggs have carbs, a little low amount of carbs,
There's some
and
things that
mm,
are going through the carb tracking apps that say they have carbs, and I'm like, this can't have a carb. It's an egg. What are you talking about? So we might delete those carbs from your brain and say you're even less than that. But go ahead, keep going.
it shows up anyway on my
Yeah.
tracking device. So I'm okay with them being added in because if it doesn't count, that's fine. I'm getting less carbs. And I get them berries and primarily, and then vegetables, and that's about it. I don't eat anything else but that and protein, and then making sure I get 80 ounces of water a day. Part of that is electrolyte water. So it wasn't a huge change. Breakfast was the easiest for me to change. And then I changed dinner because lunch was a little harder because I like to include a lot of carbs of that, and I like to get have fast food brought in. So I had to take that out eventually. So I kind of changed breakfast, changed dinner. I changed my snacks, which I eventually eliminated because eating 3 times a day was sufficient for me. It's funny because the tracking app I use, I started with it and I like it. But it is always telling me that I have too little calories. I'm taking in too little calories. I'm like, yes, but the important part is I'm getting enough protein. I'm getting sufficient carbs, enough. And the other thing I had to add in and kind of wrap my mind around was the fat, the fat component, and bringing back butter into my life and bringing MCT oil into my life and coconut oil and all these different things that I just got rid of, and eating the parts I love, like the dark meat of chicken, and eating the skin was just like, oh, I get to do this. I always wanted to do that all my life. I like the dark meat of chicken, and I like the skin, the crispy skin outside. And that was always like, no, you shouldn't eat that. But now I'm like,
I
I
could
can eat it.
totally eat a pile of chicken skin, crispy chicken skin. That just sounds so amazing. Usually when we're at dinner and I make chicken and it's got the crispy skin, and my kids still peel it off. I don't know what's wrong with them. And I'm like, give me that. Give me that. I'm eating theirs.
Right. So it's just funny. It was just such a shift in my thinking of what was healthy. It wasn't terrible because I knew I was trying to eat healthy for so long and I still gained weight. But it was still a shift, a paradigm shift to especially get that fat in, that component in. And sometimes I still have to go back and make sure I'm getting that in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then my kids noticed such a change in me. I have a 16-year-old at home and a 19-year-old at home, and both of them have autism, and one of them has autism plus a mood disorder. And so they had noticed the change, and we all decided as a family to take all the carbs and everything out of the house that didn't qualify as ketogenic. Cereal was a big issue for them. They're big cereal and milk drinkers and cereal eaters. But oh, I saw immediately with them, almost pretty much immediately, because they're young. Irritability went down, the ability to concentrate increased. Each of them lost 20 to 30 pounds. It took in a year, so it wasn't like drastic, and they didn't need to lose more than that. And when we go out, sometimes they'll say, I want to get a shake, or I want to get this. And I'm like, whatever, it's your money. I'm not buying it for you. And they'll get it. And my son is like, this doesn't taste right. This is too sweet. So, and my husband has always supported it. And when we made the shift in our kitchen to only having ketogenic compliant ingredients in our home to make things with, he was completely like, I was very hesitant. What about the kids? What will they think? What will they do? He's like, let them buy their own stuff. They both make money. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it wasn't bad. And even at holidays, when we had my oldest daughter over, we made, I once again wanted to waffle and go back to will they think that I stole away their traditions by not having traditional food that they have always grown up with? And he's like, no, we should stick with what helps. And we did. We had I call it a very keto mojo holiday, because that's where I got all of my recipes for that day, those days, and they loved them. Each child loved something different about each meal. And I love the way the meal left us feeling satisfied, but not overstuffed and sleepy. And we could do, activities together and talk and play games, when mostly we just wanted to go home and sleep. So the experience has been great for my family and for me.
That's just absolutely amazing. I love hearing that you've been able to incorporate it in the family. So if you were talking to your kids and asking them about it, have they noticed differences in themselves because of it?
Yes, they have. Um, I mean, kids are going to waffle more and more. My daughter is keenly interested in actually doing ketogenic therapy, to help reduce her symptoms, like irritability and things like that. And then we had discussions about different kind of medications that she was prescribed as a childhood, in childhood, that I'm just now coming to think, there aren't long-term studies about antidepressant use that go beyond a year. Why are people being put, and kids especially, being put on these kind of medications for lifetime? Many 5 years, I hear, is pretty average to be on these medications. And I just so concerned about their metabolic function, you know, things I wasn't concerned about before. I didn't even think about, because I just trusted the doctors, and I thought, oh, this is the way we go. They have autism, so therefore they're going to be prescribed medication. My son is off of all of his medication, and really has drastically improved. And we quickly found out that his ADHD medications, the stimulant, the non-stimulants even, were actually causing a lot of the dysregulations he was having and the meltdowns he was having. Those have pretty much gone away. Actually, they have all gone away without those medications. So he is also sensitive to medication as well. And my daughter is still on one medication, a very low dose of an ADHD stimulant, to help her. And that's about it.
Well, it's all just amazing that you're seeing this. And now I understand why you are involved with Children's Mental Health Resource Center. So
Yes.
I think it's a great way to lead into that, because clearly you've had this very personal experience with your own children. So what is this resource center? What does it do? And then how are you involved with it?
Okay. Well, Children's Mental Health Resource Center, or we call it CMHRC. I volunteer in education and community activities, and that is where I'm part of a book club, and now it's a book club and movie club. And I read the books because I love to read, and watch the movies now, and I develop the questions for the club, and I attend the club. And then there's also going to be starting up a new homeschool support group for families, because sometimes children and adolescents with mood disorders, and primarily bipolar disorder, struggle to stay in the school system. So there's a need to not only support families who decide to stay in their local school system, there's also a need to support families that decide to homeschool. And I am a former teacher with more than 10 years of experience working with children who have mood disorders, primarily bipolar disorder. So, and CMHRC is committed to the early identification and management of mood disorders and bipolar disorder, and its newly recognized phenotype, thermal regulatory sleep disorder, and it's also known as FOH. So I just felt like that was a great way to volunteer and to help other families that were going through some of the similar things that I've been through. And then everybody on the staff and all of the volunteers also have personal experience. They have lived experience with primarily bipolar disorder and thermoregulatory sleep disorder.
And you said they did a clinical trial
They
recently,
did.
and so then I guess that means they're pretty open. Are they pretty open to introducing metabolic therapies instead of
They
medications?
have they are going to do another study coming up. They are just getting ready. I think they're getting the participants. I'm not involved with that part of it, but I know that they're actively looking for participants, children and adolescents, to participate and in that study. And you know how it is, it's hard to find. I'm sure it's hard to find adolescents, especially because parents can pretty much control their children's diet, but once they get to be adolescents, it gets a little bit more tricky. It's if you go to cmhrc.org, there's information there about the ketogenic study that will be conducted again. And then there is also, if parents are already thinking about or doing ketogenic therapy, there are professionals on staff that can help you with that. And it's called a ketogenic fee for service. Basically, you get some help, and that's how that works. And then there's just so much on there. There's so many different studies that is just really good information that you don't often hear about at your psychiatrist's office or anywhere else.
Yeah, and so many parents struggle with how to do things, and I think we get this kind of innate. We know, just like you kind of said before, I got to go back to the foods that I love to eat. Like if you look at the kids when you have your babies and they're sitting in their high chair and you're giving them their first foods and they're spitting out the mushed up spinach, but they want the meat. Like they're telling us something, and I think somewhere deep down we know we've just been conditioned to think that medication is the answer. So it feels weird, but we have to revert back to what does work, and the medications are the new thing, and we gotta kind of remember medications are the new thing here. It's a very interesting organization. I'm glad you've introduced us to it. Now, is this a worldwide, a national, local? It's how
This
where
is we're all over the United States, at least. So it's all by Zoom, by email, by webinars. A lot of the stuff on there is free to therapists, clinicians, doctors who want to come and be part of the professionals. A lot of the things on there, the book club, the movie club, the homeschool support group, many of the services are free.
That's amazing. That is so good. I'm glad that's out there. So when you say you're uh, working with the book club, are you introducing these types of books, these ketogenic themed books, or
Yes,
is it
they
a little
have,
bit of everything?
it's a little bit of everything. We try to primarily focus on bipolar disorder, but we have gone into books about trauma. We have gone into books, Dr. Ead's book about metabolism and ketogenic therapy. We have read Dr. Palmer's book, Brain Energy. So we kind of cover everything around that would support and help an individual living with bipolar.
And are you seeing that people are responsive to it when you have these book club meetings?
We have a very small group of regular attenders, and we can't wait to expand.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. It's just it's that scream from the mountaintop moment, right?
So yes, please join us if you love to read and discuss books. And we're open to everybody, individuals living with bipolar. We're open to therapists, clinicians. I'm an educator, I'm on there, and parents, anybody that wants to come and learn more and be involved.
That sounds amazing, and we'll definitely put the link to the website in the
Right.
notes when we go forward. So I want to ask you this though. What do you see as your future? Like you've done this 18 months. You've been able to get off of all of these medications. What do you see as this world that's laid out in front of you right now?
Well, I want other people to know about ketogenic therapy or keto. I love that it's so individual. I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about Dr. Ead's book was that you get the impression that you have to make it for you. You have to make it work for you. Because she has so many different plans in there, and she does such a great job of explaining each one. Carnivore, I think she calls it quiet carnivore, things like that, quiet this, quiet that. But it's just so helpful, and it's so individualized. And I want people to know that they can start small, and that, tracking your progress, including even your weight, but more importantly, your ketones, your energy, your mood. And then I keep talking to my doctors a lot, my psychiatrist and the other doctors that I have, just to keep putting on their radar metabolic psychiatry and the importance of, not just asking all these depression screening questions, but also asking, where's your brain getting its energy from? Because I think that's just a really important question. Yeah, I want people and more people to know about ketogenic therapy and metabolic psychiatry.
I'm writing down what you just said, so one moment, please. I wrote down, where's your brain getting your energy from? I think that's a fantastic question. Are you getting pushback from these doctors, or are they receptive to these ideas?
From my psychiatrist, I send him a lot of links, a lot of studies. I don't get a lot of feedback, but I know he's seen me go off all my medications and consistently stay off of them and feel better and need less appointments. I haven't been back to him in 3 months. And I probably will continue to see him just because I haven't experienced enough to know that I'm not going to need help in the future. I'm still a little reticent about completely giving up having a psychiatrist kind of in the back, that knows me very well and has worked with me for 18 years. And he helped treat my akathisia when other doctors were like, I don't think there's anything we can do. He went and studied about it and came back with a plan. And then other doctors are quite interested sometimes in the information I provide. And like one of my children's doctors was interested, and I provided him with a study, and he was very happy to read it. Said he was very happy to have it. I don't know if he read it. I don't know. I didn't get really a lot of feedback from that. But I think the more of us that keep talking about it, I think eventually they're going to have to pay attention.
I agree with you. I mean, the pushback used to be so great, and now I start hearing more stories that at least they're taking it from you, and at least they're saying they're going to read it. Like that's even that is like a huge step in the right direction. Even if they just take it, say they're going to read it and put it somewhere else, but that's still it used to be no, that's not going to work. Don't even show it to me. I don't care.
Right.
So it
Right.
may feel hard in the trenches, but it is making a difference.
Sure. I agree. And I was very upfront. I kind of followed the Metabolic Mind and Dr. Ead's book. I informed my physicians ahead of time that I was doing ketogenic therapy. I provided the links they could go to. I provided the rationale. I wrote it all down for them. And I asked for the blood work that I needed, and I got it with a few exceptions, with a few things taken off they didn't think I needed. And I allowed that because they were agreeing to it, just to take off a few things off the blood work. I was okay.
Yeah,
with.
it's a choose your battle situation.
At least they're like, okay, go for it. But then my regular doctor, I was in before Christmas, and he's like, look at all the medication you've gone off of. Like, I was taking at least 11 to 12 medications a day, keeping up with all of that, and now I'm down to one and a vitamin. He's just absolutely amazed. I mean, not even with my weight loss, he's amazed with that, but just the fact that all these medications have just shrunk so significantly has amazed him. I remember I went to a new doctor one time many years ago when I was still at my heaviest and taking all these tons of medications. I didn't go back because the one thing that doctor said, he looked at me, I looked at the medication list and was like, you're on a lot of medications. I was just like, okay, fine. I thought, well, I don't want to go back to them. Maybe I should have stuck it out with him, because maybe he would have figured out how to get me off of all of this.
Maybe that was the first part of the sentence, and the second part was, let me help you figure out why you're on them and get you off. We will never know.
I will never know unless I go up the road and go back and say, hey, do you remember me? And now I'm down to 2 meds, or 1 med and a vitamin.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. And you've mentioned this a couple times, and I don't want to brush over it, but obviously changing the diet isn't the only piece of the puzzle here. It's a wider range of therapies that you can use. And then so you mentioned that you do like weight training and stuff. What other kind of therapeutic actions are you taking to help support you?
I mean, I exercise daily except 1 day a week. I kind of take it easy and I love photography. I love going out in my community and taking pictures, especially of flowers. We have a lovely botanical garden about 20 minutes, and I love going there and just being there and taking pictures and just sitting. I've recently brought in meditation and working with that, because I've always been such a high stress person, and high cortisol is just, I live with it. I just gave up trying to reduce it or trying anything, because I never understood how to relax and how to breathe and calm down. I've had so many doctors, so many friends tell me that I just act stressed all the time, but they never really explain, even my therapist, I just never could understand how not to be stressed. I was just so anxious all the time, so pent up, just trying to control my life so much. So I just feel so much calmer now, so much clearer, and I'm able to focus on meditation or yoga, which I'd never tried before because I knew I'd never be able to stand or sit there and think about each move. And I've started that once a week. So I like to read a lot. That's a relaxing activity I enjoy doing, and spend time with my family. And I love to write. So,
They might sound, I don't know how it sounds in your head. I think you think that it sounds like I don't really do all that much. But I'm going back to the original part of your story where you're basically trapped in your home. So
yes,
you couldn't go do those things. And how amazing it is that you are actually taking this very dedicated time to go out and smell the roses, or at least take pictures of them.
right. Or meet my friends out and not have to focus on where are we going to eat, or if we go to a coffee shop, I don't feel any desire to get the pastries and stuff. I'm there for their company and to be with friends, and I don't feel like I have to fill my life with all the foods that I did before.
It's just amazing to hear. I think that's another thread you and I could probably go down for quite some time, but we've neared our hour. So I will just put it out there that it's amazing once you get into it. Like you said with your kids, they tasted a milkshake and it didn't taste right. Like it's amazing once you get into it, how much your taste changed and how much you start to value yourself where that value may not have been there before.
Right.
And I
I
think you're
agree.
certainly a living example of that. And I just cannot wait to watch your story continue to unfold. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that we met on Metabolic Collective's Facebook page and you just came out and started sharing your story within that private group. And I'm just so thankful that you were willing to do so. And again, very thankful that you were willing to come here and share it out loud and in person with me,
Well,
because it's a story that needs to be told. I love you were, you were already kind of advocating. You were already advocating for your kids, but then you got to also include yourself in the
yes.
story now, and how much that's changed. It's amazing. So, how can people find you, connect with you?
Um, I am on Metabolic Collective on their Facebook page. I in Keto Mojo community. Um, and I'm at CMHRC. You can I'm on Instagram, but I don't even remember my handle.
That's fine. If I find it, I'll add it. But yeah, so Facebook. You can contact me and
Facebook.
say, I really enjoyed hearing Lisa. Can you connect me and I'll connect you. Those
Yeah.
are ways. This
I'm
is
not
the
prepared to be a professional and have a website yet. I don't think.
and, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But I'm sure you're willing to talk to people. As you told me
Absolutely.
earlier, I would volunteer in any way possible. So if you
Sure.
can't find Lisa, find me and I will help you
I'm
find
Robin.
Lisa.
Robin found me. So,
And but I saw that you have your cup. So does that mean you filled out your Think Smart profile? So people can find you on Metabolic Mind as well in the Think
they
Smart
can. My
profiles.
picture's not there because I was very shy at the time of anything, but my name is there.
Yeah.
But
So
yes, that is
you're
there, and it was very helpful.
you're going through that process of kind of filling out the questions and really thinking about what is it that I do, like especially because I think you probably just kind of like me, you went into it kind of the backwards way, like you were
I
already
did.
kind of doing stuff and then you heard about it. That's how, like, it amazes me to think about now that people are using the therapies knowingly, like they stepped into it
Right.
knowing what they were. That's when you get the questions like, well, how fast did it click for you? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. It just
3 or
happened
4
one day.
months? I don't know.
I don't know. But I wasn't tracking that kind of stuff. It didn't exist in my
I
world.
wasn't
So
even tracking anything
yeah.
except for, like, my macronutrients, but so imperfectly. I went into this journey so imperfectly, but I am thrilled. I am thrilled about where I am right now. This is livable. This is very fulfilling for me, and I would just tell people on their journey to celebrate your non-scale victories. Don't worry about so much about what the meter says or what the scale says. Just improving your mobility, your energy, your mental clarity. It's just so important. And I keep track of my non-scale victories, and I have pages and pages of stuff with dates and pictures when I can. And I go back through and I'm like, I can't believe where I came from.
Well, just hearing about it, I can't believe the person that I'm sitting in front of right now is the same person that you described earlier. So thank you once again for coming here and sharing your story. I just really appreciate it. I think everyone's going to love it, and I think you are going to touch that one person and probably a lot more. So, on behalf of Lisa Blackstone, I'm Robin Dobbins. Thank you for listening to our Keto biography. Bye.